In today's video, I have the cutest hinged gift box. Super simple, quick and easy to make. Anybody can do it. A fabulous project to chop up some of your paper and use that stash. This box is what we're going to be creating. Stick around for a fun Chop It Up inspired project. Hi, my name is Jenny and welcome to my channel where we share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration. Thanks so much for joining me today. Let's dive into the hinged lid gift box. First up, I've got a 2-page template, totally free. You can pick up on my website. I'll leave a link in the description box down below where you can find this template. And we're gonna dive right in. Let's start with some colored cardstock. You can use any cardstock for this as long as it's 12 by 12 inches. I'm using a 12 by 12 pad from Michaels. That's just solid colored cardstock. And we're gonna need 2 sheets of 12 by 12. So I picked 2 solid colors and I'm gonna pop it in my scoreboard and score on all 4 sides at 3 inches. So I'll score 3 inches, rotate, score 3 inches until we've got all 4 sides scored. And I'm going to score both of these papers the exact same way. So 3 inches on all 4 sides. All right, now we're going to make some cuts into this paper. We're just going to be following along the score marks and we're going to make the same cuts on both the left and the right of the paper. So starting on the first side, I'm going to follow along that first score line until I meet the intersecting score line. Okay, making sure that I cut right down the center, keeping it nice and straight. And I'll do that to both pieces on the same side. Okay, and we'll just release that center flap. Now, on the smaller flaps on the left and right, we're going to cut a slight angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to see this at all. It just helps when folding everything together. So I'm going to cut an angle out of both of those pieces, and we should have a little something that looks like this. Okay, I'll do the exact same thing to the opposite side. I'm going to cut and release that center flap, making sure that I keep my scissors nice and straight so these edges are perfectly straight. And then I'll come in and cut that slight little angle out of both of those flaps. And now we should have a little something that looks like this. Next, I'm going to crease all of those score lines. So I'm just grabbing a bone folder to make sure that I get nice sharp creases here. And I'm folding away from my score so that my paper doesn't crack. You can use pattern paper for this or a heavy base weight cardstock, something thicker. I'm just using what I have and it works out very well. And then we're going to apply adhesive to these flaps. So I'm going to fold the 2 flaps in and then cover those little parts with adhesive. I'll do that to both the top and the bottom, the exact same thing. So I'm folding those little flaps in, applying adhesive all over them, and then I'm going to stand the piece up and adhere everything together. Now to get this lined up straight, I use the top of the cardstock. So the top of that little flap plus the top of the longer flap. I just line those 2 pieces up and press in that adhesive. It's super easy to line up because we've cut out those little bit of angles out of those flaps so that there's no resistance in the bottom and nothing will be sort of sticking up and over the box. So lining up those flaps, getting nice 90-degree angles to the bottom of our box. And then once everything is all adhered together, I'm going to grab my bone folder and really burnish in that adhesive. Now I'm using tape runner for the purposes of demonstration. I would suggest using a liquid glue or something a bit stronger than tape runner, but I just need something quick for recording purposes. So I've got the bottom of my box formed. If you want to strengthen this up, you could apply some patterned paper or an insert inside, double up on that cardstock to make it a bit thicker. The base of the box is complete. Now let's move on to that hinged lid. So the cuts for the hinged lid will be slightly different. We're going to be making the same cuts in the paper on the left and the right. So starting on the right side here, I'll cut the first score line up to the intersecting score line. and then cut the second one, releasing that big center piece. And then back at the bottom, I'm going to cut out that slight angle. And then this top square here, we're going to cut that away completely. Take it right off. All right, so we'll do the exact same thing to the other side. We're going to cut out that slight angle. We're going to release the center flap and cut away that very top square. And then our piece should look like this. Now the two squares that we ended up cutting away from this paper, hang on to those. We're going to use those to reinforce our hinge later on. All right, so I'll go ahead and crease all of the folds here, just using my bone folder, getting a nice burnish. Make sure everything is nice and squared up and I don't have any cracking in my paper. Okay, so this extra flap here, kind of all by its lonesome, that's going to be our hinge. These two little flaps are going to fold up to create the shape of the lid of our box. So a little something like this. Now I'm not going to glue these together yet because I want to show you something. I've got a couple of paper clips. I'm just going to hold everything together so I can show you how this works. I just pinned up those two pieces. You would have glue on them, and I'll apply adhesive to that loose flap there and put it on any side of the box because this is a square box. It doesn't matter what side it goes on. And you're basically just going to glue it to the back of the box, just that little flap. And then your box will open and close just like this. Okay? Super simple. And so the reason why I put paper clips on is because I want to come back and I want to step this lid up. I want to cut a shape out of the center of this piece here so that I create a window to my box. So you could do any shape here. I'm just going to grab a circle die and I'm just going to trace a circle around the center of this square here. This is the 6 by 6 inch center of my lid. So I've just grabbed my pencil, traced a little circle around, okay? Nothing fancy. If you have a big die cutting machine and this would fit in your die cutting machine, then by all means do that, but I don't. So I'm just gonna cut a T or an X through the center of this circle so that I can get my scissors in there and trim away those pieces with ease. Okay, so I'm just gonna follow along my pencil lines and cut out that circle. And then we'll have this big hole in the top of our box. All right, so I'm going to fill this with a piece of scrap packaging. I have a piece of plastic from a stamp set, and this is all I used for acetate. Super inexpensive. Obviously, it's something you would throw out normally. So I'm just recycling that packaging and just cutting it to make sure that it fits around my circle. And I'll have enough room on all of the sides to apply adhesive and it won't fall off. Okay, so I'm just going to apply my tape runner here all the way around the outside and around the circle as well so that my packaging sticks right to the edge of my circle. I'll lay my packaging right into my adhesive and then boom, we have a beautiful window inside of our box. I think it just really steps this box up and brings it to a more professional level. All right, so now we can go ahead and apply adhesive to those two little flaps. So I'm just gonna cover adhesive and glue that together, same way as we had done with the bottom of the box, lining up those pieces to make sure that everything is nice and straight. And now the top of our box is formed. Perfect. I apologize for the glare on the packaging. I've been YouTubing for 5 years now and I can't figure out how to get rid of the glare. I do my best. All right, so let's put this together. So I'm just gonna apply adhesive to that loose flap there and I'll cover the whole piece all the way edge to edge to make sure that it doesn't sort of hang off. This is where you want to use good strong stuff here. You don't want this to come apart on you when you open and close. So I would advise to use good strong adhesive on this part. And then I'll just fold it all up. So I find it easiest to put the box together and then press in that adhesive. Then you know it's lined up perfectly. And then I can open it and come back in and press in that adhesive with my bone folder to make sure that it's really burnished in there. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now, this little hinge here, we're going to use those scraps. I'm going to take those leftover scraps that we had cut away, fold them in half, and I'm going to apply adhesive on these and just attach it to that hinge. Now, because I have a circle cut out of the top of my box, I'm going to need to strategically cut that scrap so it doesn't cover my window. Okay, so I'll just trim. I don't think it's super important. This part doesn't have to be perfect. This is just going to provide stability, and no one's really going to look at this part. So if you're really fussy about it, you can come in and cover this whole piece with another piece of paper. I think it's fine. I'm not too concerned about it. So I just come in and press in that adhesive, and now we have an extra strong hinge using leftover pieces. All right, there we go. Our box is formed. The very last thing that I like to do here is add a finger notch. I find sometimes I can struggle a little bit to figure out how to open the box, and so a recipient may as well. So I just come in with a circle punch. I cut out a half of a circle, and now we have a little spot to grab if we want to open it. Okay, perfect. That's it. The box is complete. Now you can just use your imagination, let those creative juices flow, and make this extra special. Now, in a previous video, I had done a whole bunch of prepping for cards. Now, I have a ton of die cuts left over, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity to use those. I even put a sentiment on the front of my box. I thought it was super cute. You can fill these boxes with treats or, like little shredded paper, and then put your treats on top of it so it looks extra special. You could put baked goods in there. I would suggest obviously wrapping it a little bit better, but there's so many things you could use these boxes for. So quick recap for today, we used 2 sheets of 12 by 12 pattern paper, scored at 3 inches on all the sides. We cut and we glued, and we created a 6 by 6 inch box that's 3 inches deep. So I made holiday boxes. You can make them for any season. I've also gone ahead and made a smaller one. So to create a slightly smaller box, you need 2 sheets of 9 by 9 inch paper, score at 2 inches on all the sides for both sheets. We're going to cut and glue the exact same as we had done in this video, and this will create a 5 by 5 inch box that's 2 inches deep. So just an alternative for a little bit of a smaller box. Okay, so that is going to be it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed this really super easy box. I had so much fun making this. I was really excited on how quickly this came together, and you can use up that pattern paper that's sitting on the shelf collecting dust and make it useful. That free template will be linked in the description box down below if you want to keep that stored away for future so that you can come back and make these boxes over and over again. And of course, I'll always be here for you to repeat and watch this video again. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day and spending it here with me. I appreciate you being here. So coming up on screen are a couple of videos that I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!